Hello, everybody. Welcome to MedEdits Medical Admissions Office Hours. It's great to see everybody tonight. It is July 1st, which, as most of you know, is a very exciting date in medicine. And why is that? It is because today is the day that everybody starts the new years of their residencies, fellowships, internships, and so it's a super duper exciting time. And we have former students who are starting all different residencies. Some are starting their first years, their PGY1 years in some foundational residencies like internal medicine, family medicine, pediatrics. We also have some of our students whom we worked with a year ago who are starting their PGY 2 years in specialties such as orthopedics, ENT, dermatology, ophthalmology. So this is a very kind of interesting time of year when you work in hospitals and in medical settings where you have trainees, because everybody is starting fresh and starting new. And, so everyone's a little nervous, or excited about their new responsibilities, because in residency, you do have graduated responsibilities. So every year you take on more responsibilities. And so that can be exciting, that can be nerve-wracking at the same time. So congratulations to all of our students who are starting internship/residency. This was also a very exciting week because FlexMed decisions came out. And FlexMed is the early assurance program from the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, where I was formerly on faculty, and where I worked in the emergency department and worked on the admissions committee. So this week we found out that some of our students got into FlexMed. FlexMed is an extremely competitive, highly selective program for students who find out in their sophomore year of college that they have a guaranteed seat at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, and they are exempt from taking the MCAT, which is an added bonus. But even more fortuitous is they have extra time to pursue other interests and to explore their academic and their scholarly interests. And every year we definitely work with a bunch of students who are applying to the FlexMed program at Mount Sinai, as well as to several other early assurance and accelerated programs, students who are looking to do BSMD programs, or students who are looking to gain that early assurance during college. So just to introduce myself, I am Dr. Jessica Friedman. I am the founder and chair of MedEdits Medical Admissions. And we help students get into medical school, residency, fellowship. We offer guidance for all stages of your medical education. So let's jump right in. And if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. I can address questions, from college all the way up to fellowship. Admissions is what we do, and it's what we live and breathe here. And, and so I have a really fabulous team, and, this is all we do. So, okay, let's jump right in. So Harriet asks, I was wondering about the Georgetown SMP. I read reviews that said that the program is extremely competitive with average GPA of 3 to 3.3, and that there's limited support. Would you still recommend this program, and why? Or is there another program that you would suggest that would be better, but would better prepare medical students for medical school? The Georgetown program is terrific. It is one of the most established special master's programs in the country. And just for those of you who don't know, a special master's program is a postgraduate program that you attend after college if you underperformed in college academically and you're looking to prove yourself so you can improve your chances of getting into medical school. And this is a very, common issue for students for a variety of reasons. So the Georgetown Special Master's Program is a terrific program. We have not found that program is lacking support, actually. Our students who have attended Georgetown, either students we have worked with to help them get into the Georgetown SMP, or students that we've worked with while they're at the Georgetown SMP, have never complained about a lack of support. So that's a little surprising. I'd be curious, Harriet, to know where you heard that, because this is not something that we've heard from our students at all. And in fact, Georgetown, because they've been around for so long, they they're a very well-oiled machine in terms of having the steps of what they do, for students to help them get into medical school if they're applying while they're in the program, or if they're waiting to apply once they're done with the program. These programs are extremely competitive to get into, the tougher programs. So Georgetown, certainly, you have to have probably a minimum GPA to be competitive. You also have to have a minimum MCAT to be competitive. So we sometimes will work with students, for example, who, let's say, have lower MCATs that make them more competitive for osteopathic medical schools, but not as competitive for allopathic medical schools. And those students are going to have a tough time getting into the Georgetown program. Also, certainly once you are in an SMP like Georgetown, it's competitive within the program itself, right? The students who go to these programs, they tend to be extremely focused, mature students who kind of, had their distractions, whatever those were, as undergraduates. And now they're ready to really hit the books. So certainly those programs, once you're in them, are fairly intense. And, but we've heard good things about the Georgetown program, and we've seen very amazing results from the Georgetown program. Now, there are a large number now of special master's programs, and you can actually search those. The Association of American Medical Colleges has a wonderful searchable database of all of the special master's programs, and maybe we can put that in the chat if we can find that. My assistant will see if he can find, that link. Otherwise, email us and we can send you that link. But the AMC has a wonderful searchable database for both special master's programs. Those are called academic enhancement programs, as well as for post-bac programs, which, usually go under career enhancement. And you can sort of see what all the special master's programs are. Now, when you are looking at special master's program, it's really important to try to find out, if it's possible, what percentage of the students that attend the program actually end up getting into medical school. And when you ask that question, you want to also be specific about, are they getting into allopathic, meaning MD granting, or osteopathic medical schools. Now, there also are osteopathic special master's programs now as well that are specifically geared towards osteopathic medical school. So not all of these programs are, so great. Some of them are very new. A new program is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes new programs can allow for amazing opportunities for you to really be involved and to kind of be on the ground floor of something, and really impact, kind of the reputation of that program. But sometimes newer programs, maybe they don't have a track record, maybe, or the medical schools don't know them as well. So when attending a new program, you really want to find out who the leadership of the program is, what their plan is, what their curriculum is, and so you can kind of make a better judgment about that. Okay. Sorry, that was a very long answer. So are there better places to go than Georgetown? Maybe not better. A lot of this also depends on geography and finances too. Certainly we have students who sort of do their own special master's programs. They create them, and they make up their own curriculums that mirror the, the curriculums of special master's programs. So you can always do sort of a DIY post-bac or special master's program as well. Obviously, the more formal programs give you tremendous structure, and that is a huge benefit for some students. Okay, thank you for doing office hours. You're welcome. These are actually really fun and I enjoy them. So thank you for watching. I wanted to ask about retaking classes. Is your opinion, is it worth to retake a class where one received a C+ at a U of C? So having one C+ on your transcript is not a deal breaker, okay? We generally do not recommend retaking classes. And why is that? Well, because when you retake a class, the reviewer is going to assume that you should be performing well in that class because you've already gone through it once before. So rather than retaking a class and getting, a higher grade in a course where you earned a C+, we would probably recommend that instead you take another science class or an upper level science class and earn an A in that class, right? So to sort of disprove the C+ that you earned in whatever course. So, retaking classes is not something that we generally advocate. Obviously under, some special circumstances we might, but this is not something generally that we would recommend doing. What can you tell me about Duet? Several schools require it, but I don't necessarily want my other Casper schools to see these scores. Okay, so Casper now has 3 different sections. One is the regular Casper, and we really try to emphasize to our students, Casper is not a hard test, okay? It is, assuming you don't say anything offensive, egregious, racist, sexist, and you fundamentally are just sort of a moral, ethical, honest person, Casper's not going to be tough for you. Okay, Casper is graded, so to speak, by lay people. Okay, so the people whom we actually have someone on our faculty who used to be a Casper grader, and they're just, they take anybody to assess your Casper, written responses, okay? And now Casper, new this year, is actually for the first time giving applicants feedback. So they're gonna tell you, I think about 4 weeks after the test, which quartile you fit into, for Casper specifically. When you're preparing for Casper, we recommend that you just take the sample test that they have, and you don't stress about it. Okay, now for Duet, Duet is required by only some medical schools, and we're trying to sort of compile a comprehensive list of which medical schools are requiring not just Casper, that information is easy to find, but which schools are requiring Duet and Snapshot, okay? And our students have said that both of these are not difficult, that they are easy. Duet in particular, we are hearing that more medical schools are requiring Snapshot, which is a one-way interview, than they are Duet, okay? Again, the medical schools don't even know what they're necessarily doing with this information because they've never had it before, all right? As long as you don't sort of come off as a psychopath, I think you're going to be okay with both Snapshot and Duet. We have never heard of, results from any SJT, so, situational judgment test, which this falls under that category. We've never heard of anybody, not getting an interview or not getting accepted because of their outcomes. So don't stress about it. And if we find, a comprehensive list, and when we have time to compile a comprehensive list, we will do that and we'll publish that on our website. This is, obviously our busy season right now because we are working with medical school applicants, and now we're also starting to, really work intensively with our residency applicants, who are applying for residency in the fall. So it's a busy time of year here at MedEdits. If any of you find a comprehensive list of who is requiring Casper, but more specifically Snapshot and Duet, please let us know. If a school does not require Snapshot or Duet, I don't know if they're going to be able to see your results, but I don't think so. I think that the schools have to pay for this, and they're only going to be shown those results that they are requiring. So I don't think you have to worry if you do Duet that the school who doesn't require it is going to see it. I don't think that's a concern. Okay, I withdrew my application last year and I'm reapplying this year. I retook the MCAT, but did worse. Trying to retake this mid-July and already verified primary. Is complete by mid-August late? Okay, complete by mid-August B is not early, okay? It's on the later side of things. What I would recommend you do is to, while you're studying for the MCAT, if you're already verified, I would recommend that you start working on your secondary essays now. So we are starting to receive the new prompts from our students who are applying this year. So certainly many medical schools are, as they receive their verified applications, the first wave of verified applications were sent out last week, I believe, May 26th, I think. So as schools are going to start sending out their secondary essays, so the prompts from this year will soon be all over, the internet, SDN, Reddit. We will compile those again once we have the time. We will compile those as well. But I would recommend that if you are applying in mid-August, that you start completing your secondaries now. I would caution you that if you end up with a lower MCAT than you want, it's possible that taking the test in July is going to be too quick. So if assuming that you've already taken the MCAT twice, you really want to make sure that that third attempt, that you kind of knock it out of the park, depending on where those first two scores are. So I wouldn't want you to retake the MCAT in July and sort of, do somewhere between score 1 and 2. That would be my concern. And, this is something we would really talk through with you. You could be better off really sort of figuring out what you need to do to improve, maybe getting professional help if that's an option for you to figure that out, and maybe even delaying for another year. Those are just kind of options to throw out there, okay? When a student does a DIY post-bac, around how many units are admissions committees looking for per quarter, per semester? I think of things in terms of requirements, okay? So for a post-bac, you want to take all of the medical school prerequisites. Many medical schools are moving towards competency-based admissions, but for the majority of post-bac students who didn't take who weren't science majors, they likely are not going to even have those competency-based admission requirements. But that said, until all medical schools move towards something called competency-based admissions, we would recommend that you do the traditional prerequisites. So chemistry 1 and 2, orgo 1 and 2, physics 1 and 2, bio 1 and 2. Make sure you've taken math, and for good measure, you should also have biochemistry. Many schools want to see English as well. If you can take upper level science classes, that's a good idea as well. Hi, Youngji, how are you? Yes, it has been a long time since we've talked. I hope you're doing well. Can you tell us more about the MCAS SJT exam? It's my first time seeing it. What can I do to prepare for it? So I just heard today that that was VITA, never mind. So the MCAS SJT test, that's a pilot test, and there are very few schools that are requiring that exam. I would recommend that you prepare for that exam the same way you prepare for Casper. So since there are more schools that are requiring Casper, I would recommend that you prep for the Casper test, and by taking their practice test, and then you also then take the AMC SJT test. I don't think that requires any type of special preparation. And Youngji, you've done interview prep, and so this should be this should not be a big deal kind of hoop for you to jump through. I do sort of see them as hoops. I understand the purpose of them, but we just feel for the pre-medical applicants who have so many things they need to get done. Okay. Sorry. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Have you heard of the Robert Wood Johnson Early Assurance Program, in which you apply in your sophomore year of college? How do I plan for that as a senior in high school? So the early assurance programs, you have to look at the requirements for every single one of them. So if you are planning on applying to an early assurance program, so like for example, Mount Sinai requires that you have one of your major core sciences done. They also have, they put up some average stats that they expect you to have. So you want to look specifically at the program, and you want to see what those requirements are. Essentially, if you are applying to an early assurance program, those early assurance programs, want to see that you've done everything that you need to do to be a competitive medical school applicant. So I can tell you, just because we work with a large number of flex med students, so that's the early assurance program at Mount Sinai, those students some of them have more experiences than some of our traditional medical school applicants. So just like BSMD applicants, students who are applying to combined undergraduate and medical programs, sometimes those students are tremendously accomplished in research, in scholarly activities, having exposure to clinical medicine. So essentially, whatever you need to do to be competitive to be a medical school applicant is what you need to do to be competitive for any of the early assurance programs. They're just expecting you to sort of demonstrate that earlier in the process than you would if you were applying traditionally. And of course, a given is that everyone expects you to have stellar academics. So for an early assurance medical program, they're looking at your SATs and your ACTs. One of the things that is going to be a little questionable now is because those programs really do rely on those standardized test scores. Something I've been thinking about lately is now that all the colleges are test optional and many students are not, necessarily putting as much effort into studying for their SATs and their ACTs. I'm wondering what's going to happen a little bit further down the line when those students are applying to those early assurance programs and they don't have those standardized tests. I think that's going to, create a problem for some of those students. I still think that there's tremendous benefit for standardized tests, and anyone out there who is a high school student, I encourage you to, really study for your SAT, ACT if you're in medicine, just because it's possible that those numbers, that those data points come up again in the future. I have heard that there's an increased chance of getting into medical school in your home state. Is this only applicants in state schools or all medical schools? So this is true, depending on where you live. So we have all of the admissions stats on our website, but another resource that I encourage you to look at is the medical school admissions requirements. And this is published online annually by the Association of American Medical Colleges. The data is repopulated every spring. And there you can find the in-state acceptance rate, or not acceptance rate, but you can find the percentage of in-state applicants or matriculants for every medical school in the country. So, for example, there are some state medical schools that only accept applicants from their state. So if you're from one of those states, you're in luck, right? Then there are other schools where they're accepting a smaller percentage of students from in-state. But certainly your state medical schools are often the I don't like using the word easiest when it comes to medical school admissions because nothing's easy. But sometimes those are, the ones that you are most likely to be accepted to, depending on the state you are from. And you also, you not only should look at the percentage of matriculants that are from within the state, but you also want to look at what's the average MCAT and what's the average GPA for students from within that state. So, oftentimes the average MCAT and the average GPA is going to be lower for the in-state students than it is for the out-of-state students. Okay. There are various reviews that sounded very scary. Okay. Oh, I see. What about the Boston University MAMS program in the case? Both of these are good. Boston University MAMS and Case Western are both terrific. So and the BU program I know is 2 years. So you spend 1 year doing primarily academics, you do your second year doing research. I can't remember if the Case program is 1 or 2 years. And Harriet, if you can send me those links, just email them to info@mededits.com. I would really love to see them, to see those reviews, just because this is news to me. We have not heard that Georgetown is in any way a toxic program. So if there's something online that you've seen, I'm always curious to see that. I don't always trust online reviews. It depends on where they come from and sort of how they're written. But I'd be curious to see those. Okay, how do medical schools see self-made community college post-bac? Never community college. We don't want anyone taking medical school prerequisites at community colleges. You should still always be taking all of your medical school prerequisites at a 4-year undergraduate college. But this is often viewed very positively by medical schools. And that's because they understand that sort of doing, you know, a DIY postbac takes a lot more initiative. It, you know, I don't want to say it suggests more commitment, but it suggests tremendous commitment. And a lot of times students who do DIY postbacs, you know, they're doing it also to save money, and medical schools sort of respect someone who, you know, who works and has to work. So they are not looked upon badly by medical schools. If anything, I think that medical schools see this in a very positive light. That shouldn't deter you. What is the latest you can send in an application to still be considered early? It's July 1st. I'd say now. And that is because as we get further into July, the processing times for verification are increasing, right? I have not heard anything in terms of, you know, verification times being all that unreasonable right now. I haven't heard anything from AMCAS either. But, you know, we would encourage students to be submitting if they want to be on the early side of things within the next week. But again, you have to realize that you can kind of, you know, beat the competition, so to speak, in terms of, you know, racing against the clock by working on your secondary essays as soon as you submit your primary application. A lot of students, they get that primary submitted and then they think, oh, I can take a breather and I can rest. And their inbox is just filling up with secondary application requests, and they're not getting those done. So sometimes you can actually, you know, kind of beat the clock by really getting a head start on those secondary essays. I was wondering how many days is appropriate to turn in secondaries to schools you're interested in. I know it said 2 weeks, but should you do this sooner? Okay. This is really interesting, Serena, because every student, so many students that we talk to think that there's this 2-week absolute turnaround time for secondary essays. And this is just not the case. And our students, this is never something that we recommend. I mean, we have students who literally, you know, are going to be having 25 to 30 secondaries, even more, depending on how many schools they're applying to, you know, that are flooding their inboxes all at once. So there's no way that you can turn all of those secondaries around in 2 weeks. And the vast majority of schools don't expect you to. Now, if a medical school specifically says, we want you turning this around to us within 2 weeks of receipt, then by all means you should be doing that. But, you know, we have students who are turning their secondaries in 3, 4, even 5 weeks after receipt, depending on where those schools are in their preference list and in their likely list. You know, and they're still getting interviews at those schools. So it's not as if it suggests that you're disinterested. You know, I think most people who are reviewing your application, they're really not paying attention to these dates. So I would be careful of rushing your work, because when you rush your work, the quality of your work is going to, you know, not be so great potentially. And then you're sort of, you know, undermining your own success. So I would say 2 weeks for every secondary is potentially going to be rushing your work. So, you know, most people this summer that they're applying, they're also working, they're volunteering. You know, it's not as if they're just sitting home and working on applications 24/7, nor should they be, because none of us can write, you know, for 10 hours a day and end up with, you know, quality outcomes. Okay, I'm just going to try to answer some more of these questions since we are soon going to be out of time. I am wondering whether you have a strong experience with IMGs for residency application. Yes, Ezra, we work with IMGs every year. IMGs, just for those of you who don't know, are international medical graduates. They can either be US citizens who are going usually to Caribbean, Australian, or Israeli medical schools, or they can be non-US citizens who are coming here from other countries. And that group tends to be a very bright and motivated and smart group of students. So yes, we work with all types of students when it comes to residency. I took the MCAT 2 weeks ago and will have a complete application by the end of July. Is this considered late? That is not considered late, because if your application is already submitted, Naz, I'm assuming, then you are going to be verified before your MCAT score is in. So, so that would be great. What I would start doing, since you already have the MCAT done, you've already sent in your primary application, now you need to start working on secondary essays, and you will not be late at all. That sounds like a good plan to me. Oh, thank you, Joylene. I appreciate the comment. If there are any more, I really need to sort of pick up the pace with the video content. Like I said, we've had a very busy year this year because word is spreading about how we help students. But it is on my list to start putting up more video content. So Jolene, if you have any suggestions of what video content would be especially helpful, please email us info@mededits.com. I would really appreciate that. Would you know how medical schools use the SJT or Casper as part of their assessment? Every medical school does this differently. Most medical schools, from what we've heard, are not factoring this into sort of a decision. They're just kind of like using it as something else to corroborate everything else that's in front of them. Okay, so still the fundamentals are most important, right? MCAT, GPA, letters of recommendation, your experiences, they're kind of just seeing if the SJT kind of matches up in terms of like the video interviews. They're trying to get just sort of a sense of you. Are you, kind of just someone who can have, a normal conversation and who's personable as much as they can determine that. But I would not get stressed out about any of these SJTs. It's also, it's the same way it's not going to break you. It's not going to make you. I mean, it's not as if, someone's going to, watch your snapshot video and be like, oh my gosh, I have to have this person. I don't care if they have a 495 on the MCAT. We're going to interview them. So, it goes both ways. Okay. Ezra, as far as services and signing up with us, we encourage you to sign up for a free 15-minute consultation. And we will put that link in the chat as well. And we can explain to you how we work with students and my role in the process as well. Okay, so I think this is it for tonight. I thank you all so much for joining us. This has been a lot of fun, and you can see me here again next week, and I hope you will tune in then. In the meantime, have a wonderful 4th of July. Stay safe. Enjoy the summer. We all deserve it. So happy 4th, and everyone take care, and we will see you next week.